Yep, it's a smug face. Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to episode 313 of the Stacey West podcast. 313 is what you get if you take the total league appearances of legendary Lincoln City goalkeeper Dan McPhail and add it to the number 4, which is how many goals we scored this evening against Mansfield Town. We're going to be talking about all of those goals. We're going to be talking about all of the action. And I'm going to be talking about it with Chris Lamming. How are we doing, sir?
Hiya. Oh, it's nice, isn't it, to come off the back of a convincing victory like that. I'm going to be really honest. Obviously, we went to a music festival a couple of weeks ago. I've been a little bit under the weather since, and I therefore have not had a drink since. I had a pint in the pub with you. I had another pint in the pub with your dad. I've had 2 pints. I feel a little bit tipsy, if I'm completely honest. We've since had curry. I've got a coffee, so we're all good. All the stats are written down. But it was time for celebration, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, I had no stats. I had a rampaging toothache, which got worse and worse through the day from 2 things. So it's a wisdom tooth coming through and it's a filling that's loose. And I didn't notice it at all at the game. Then we got in the Ivy Club in rugby afterwards. And I'm like, this is really beginning to hurt. And I got home and it's like, this is in agony. So I've dosed up on painkillers, not good ones, unfortunately, just ibuprofen and paracetamol, not the good ones. But yeah, it was a good afternoon. We do small talk normally. We talk about GCSEs or A levels, and we talk about all this and all that. We've only got one thing to talk about this evening, which is Lincoln City beating Mansfield Town 4-1, which I have called a thrashing in the title, and I think thrashing is about right. We're probably going to jump more or less straight into it, but let me ask you a question, Chris. Okay, I'm going to give you 4 games. And I want you to tell me which of them you felt best about afterwards.
Okay.
Ready?
Yes.
Beating Cambridge 6-0, Bristol Rovers 5-0, Barnsley 5-1, or Mansfield 4-1?
It's tough. I mean, there's always recency bias and temptation to say today. I think it's probably between Barnsley and today, because I'm going to touch on why. So Barnsley last season, it was a complete surprise, and it was a team that was chasing playoffs. And at the time, they were in half decent form. They obviously went on terrible form after that, but they're in good form at the time, and it was a real kind of statement victory. But that was ages ago now, wasn't it? Today, because I'll be honest, after last week's game, I thought we played pretty well. I could see where we were going, but I was also really. I think that we were all there. Well, apart from you, of course, we all noticed that there was still some work to do. As much as we didn't necessarily deserve the result, it was definitely not we weren't the finished article at that point. So that meant I kind of came into today's game with a few questions. I was still confident going into today's game, but a few questions needed to be answered for me in terms of our style. I didn't quite feel that we had the version of Lincoln City defensively that we had last season quite there this season. And honestly, all of those fears I may have had pre-game were completely put to bed today. It felt like a typical Michael Scubala Lincoln City performance today, and it was wonderful. So I'm going to pick today.
I was going to say, I mean, talking about GCSEs and A levels, I bet you did well in the ones that were conversational rather than having to give a succinct answer. You only had to pick 1 of 4 games. It was 2.5 minutes ago you started that answer.
I'd like to give a reason for my answer.
Well, we're going to bring some of the people in who are watching at home as well. So if you're listening in later, these people have watched live on YouTube, which is where we now record these. So Sue Imp, she thinks Barnsley for me. We love a win at Barnsley away. And England's CSB. I thought that was England's centre-back. I thought we had Harry Maguire on for a minute. Defo today, nice to be humble. Them arrogant yellers and welcome them to League One. I'm going to say today, because it's a home game, it's a big game, and it's recent. I probably wouldn't have agreed with you after Barnsley. Bristol Rovers, I was on a beach in Mauritius, and I was poorly for the Cambridge game. So personally, for me, it's the only one that I've actually been at. So, and also, I can be honest now, It's one I thought we were going to lose. And there's plenty of reasons for that. And I think it's worth setting those reasons out before we go too far, because yes, we've won 4-1 and the scoreline is it's not flattering in that we deserved to win 4-1. You have undoubtedly got some stats, and the XG will probably say we deserve to win 2-0 or 3-1 or something along those lines. I don't know. But I think that 4-1 really puts a shine on what was a tougher game than it looked. In many moments, they're a decent side. If they finish below 15th this season, I'll be surprised. And let's be honest, if you're a League One team above 15th, you don't expect to be getting beat 4-0 after 50 minutes at any game, let alone, with the greatest respect, one of your cup finals, because it is. For them, it's one of their big games. They take 2,000 or 1,800 to Lincoln. They won't take 1,800 to Bristol Rovers or to Exeter or to Stevenage or to Crawley. So it's a big game. It will be when we go there. We'll take a big number there. So I did fear for it. They've got a good team. They've got good players. It was a big game, which makes it even sweeter for me. So let's strip it all the way back to the beginning. I said the word strip, and you pulled a little funny face there, like Beavis and Butthead.
That wasn't what I was pulling a face at. I was just in anticipation of talking about the game.
Well, it all starts really at 2:00, doesn't it?
Certainly does.
And it starts at team selection. And for the second home game in a row that I've been at, the other one being Harrogate, Dad guessed the team more accurately than me. He said that George Wickens would start. I said Wickens would start against Harrogate. He said G-Cock. He was right. He said McGrandles would start today. And I thought, well, he hasn't played really all pre-season. We're going to ease him back in. And he started as well, which was a surprise. And then obviously Dom Jeffries coming in was also a surprise.
It was, yes. I was surprised at Dom Jeffries starting at left wing back. Obviously, I was delighted after stating on the podcast a few weeks ago that when we signed him, I thought he had all the attributes to be a wing back. So the fact he started there was, on a purely personal note, pretty pleased about that. But I wasn't expecting it at all. I did expect Conor McGrandles to play, I must admit, primarily because we missed a little bit of, I think, nous in there. We have a lot of exuberance, a lot of effort, a lot of, honestly, technical ability in that advanced 8 role with the other options there. And by other options, I'm assuming kind of Tom Bellis is a bit of a shoe-in. I mean, the other guys that can play in that role, be Jeffries from time to time, I imagine, Moylan, of course, and McKinnon, who has started there in the previous 2 home games. I like what they bring. Conor McGrandles brings an air of calm for me. And with Mansfield's system, which we'll touch on, but was actually a lot more sophisticated than I'd given them credit for before the game. But in their system, which involves 4 central midfield players in some way, shape or form, I thought it was really important that we had 3 relatively experienced heads in there. And Conor McGrandles obviously was in the team, which was good. I also predicted pre-game that Adam Jackson would probably miss out to Tom Hamer. How pleased am I that was wrong?
Very pleased, I would imagine. Very pleased indeed. Yes, interesting team selection. In the midfield, I think it gives us a little bit more balance. I can't remember if I said this on conversation with you or on the podcast. I lose track of what I've said and where. But for me, the first choice midfield is Arahan, one of Hamilton or McGrandles or Jeffries, and one of Bayliss and McKiernan or Moylan. That's our first choice midfield. And when you have McKiernan and Bayliss, you've got 2 attacking midfielders wanting to push forward, wanting to get forward, but it just creates sometimes a little bit of a gap, and you need a midfielder with that. When I say intelligence, I'm not saying that those other players are not intelligent, but that kind of more box to box kind of, he knows where to be and when to be at the right time, rather than always looking forward.
Yeah, it's experience, isn't it? It's experience of knowing the game situations, because you can have your ideal, you can have your tactical plan of thinking, okay, well, when we've got possession, you want to be in this position, pressing on this player, etc. But football's a fluid game. And you've got to spot those kind of in-game moments. You think, actually, I've got to be a bit more disciplined here, and I've got to sit in. And it's just having that game experience. And I think we saw that from Tendai Derikwa. We've seen it all season from Tendai Derikwa. Just that nous. He just understands the game. He shows his experience on the ball and in the game, on and off the ball as well. The amount of times he won the ball back in areas that he wouldn't expect to see a right wing back in, but he's able to sniff out the danger. He knows where to be. So I think Conor McGrandles added so much, and as much as we did create some chances after the substitutions, and of course we were 4-0 up at that point when McGrandles came off. It was more disjointed. Mansfield did have more of the play. They created the majority of their chances in that last sort of half an hour since McGrandles left the pitch. And I think as much as we noticed on the ball a few times the quality that McGrandles shows today, I also think just the when he wasn't on the pitch, maybe we kind of missed him a little bit. We showed what was missing when he wasn't there. And that's not as a kind of detriment of any other player that came on for him was played in that role. It's more of a praise for Conor in terms of just what he adds to the team.
Yeah, I mean, I was chatting. I don't want to name drop, so I won't. I was chatting to somebody quite well connected at the club just last night, and the conversation was around. Look, we look like we're just about there, but we've got a lot of new faces, and some of those new faces are still trying to pick up certain patterns of play or certain things that we want to do in certain moments. And so I think Conor McGrandles coming in, although he only played 4 games at the end of last season. Or 5 games, he was actually with the squad from January, and even while he was injured, he was still here. He's still here all the way through the summer. So it's almost like he's not a summer signing, and he probably understands the Skubala way a little bit more. So then it really is just Tom Bayliss in the midfield who's trying to get it, and up top it's House and McCarmer. So there was a more familiar feel. Let's get into the game, because I can't believe we've got to 12 minutes, not done any small talk or chatter particularly, which is good, because we're not going to talk about EFL Fantasy League at all. That's for another podcast.
Why not?
We're not mentioning that at all. We're not. It's rubbish. I can talk about it. I can't pick players. Let's talk about the first 25 minutes, because as I've already alluded to, the truth is Mansfield Town are a good side. Right? I'm not taking anything away from them. They're an ambitious side. They play strikers at wing backs. Barry, I thought, was a little bit hit and miss, to be fair. Akins has always had a bit of a nightmare against us, missed a penalty for Burton a few years ago, and Josh Vickers saved it, I think, when it was 3-2. But they're ambitious. They want to get on the ball. They love holding on to the ball. I mean, I think we've had 28% possession, according to the BBC. Y-Scout doubtless will be somewhere in the same region. They moved it really well. They were fluid at times. Akins was popping up in the middle of the park, and it was, I'm not going to say it was a challenging 25 minutes, because they only really created one decent effort, but it was a game that I thought could have gone either way for that first kind of period.
Yeah, I was concerned after 20 minutes, to be honest with you. 5 minutes in, as is pretty much standard, I think, now in a Michael Skubala side, I thought we were good in the real opening stages of the game. We had good territory, good intensity. Obviously, a few misplaced passes, as that always happens in the first few minutes, but we were good. And I actually said to Joe, who I sit next to, we'll be all right today after 3 minutes. And then 15 minutes in, I said, can I retract what I said 10 minutes ago? I was maybe a little bit overzealous there, because they were genuinely good. And I expected Mansfield to have deep possession today. I thought it made tactical sense for him to have the ball in deep positions, and I thought there would be space for us to exploit. Now, thankfully, that obviously happened later in the game. But in the first 15, 20 minutes, they were playing through us at times as well. And that was a concern with how much possession they had, and quite settled possession in our half. Albeit, we still defended the box quite well. They didn't have many chances. They only had 3 shots in the whole of the first half, 1 on target. That was a big moment, by the way, at 0-0, where Judge Watkins made a really good save, which was Mansfield's only real chance in that first half. But I actually think from maybe minute 5 to minute 29, really, Mansfield were the best side. Looked really good in possession, looked really confident. And I looking at the game beforehand and trying to analyse or predict what was going to happen. Mansfield on paper line up in a very narrow kind of diamond midfield, or certainly you call it like a 4-3-1-2 with the Keeler Dunn playing in behind the 2 strikers, a midfield 3, really narrow, and then 2 fullbacks. But actually they rotated really well in the wide areas, with both wide-ish centre midfielders and fullback/wing-backs rotating. It was quite smart, and I thought we were caught out by it a few times, but I actually think after 20 minutes or so, we settled, and we were able to, from a tactical perspective, I thought we were absolutely brilliant from 20 minutes onwards.
It does feel a little bit dirty. And there'll be a lot of people who are, kind of like red and white good, yellow and blue bad, and all that sort of thing. So it sometimes feels dirty when you praise in the opposition. But I think it's really important for perception and for just to kind of understand how well we've done. It isn't that Mansfield have come and have been hammered because they were crap and all that sort of stuff. I was trying to think of another word there. Context, that's it. But for context, it really is important to understand that this was a decent side. And this is probably, this is really Fisher Price stuff. But I thought that Davis Keeler Dunn looked outstanding for them. I thought every time he got on the ball, you felt that there was something potentially could happen. Their midfield worked really well. I did like the look of Bacchus. I think was he 17? Yeah, he was playing 17, wasn't he? But also they're quite swashbuckling. And for people of a certain age, it reminded me a lot of Kevin Keegan's Newcastle or Ozzy Ardiles Spurs. In that, Blackpool and Cambridge today was 4-4. I wouldn't be surprised if Mansfield aren't involved in something similar, because we do defend well. The only goals we've conceded, this is pretty silly, the only goals we've conceded have been through mistakes this season. We haven't been played through. We haven't been kind of taken apart. So it was never going to be easy for them to come and do that to us anyway. I thought the first 29 minutes, I never felt in danger, but I did wonder if both teams to score, I put both teams to score on an accumulator. I was worried that might not come off. Wickens did make the save. It was a bit of a snapshot. If you watch that back, actually, I think it's Dom Jeffries, a little slip from him. Probably the only one he made. I'm not going to be critical of players at all, because I thought he looked much better at left wing back than he did against Harrogate in the League Cup, without a doubt. And then on 29 minutes, the first goal is always going to be crucial, because two loud sets of fans, and again, as dirty as it feels, Mansfield's fans were loud from the first minute to the 29th minute. It was a good, lively atmosphere. If they get the first goal, that ramps up. Our fans change. It changes the mood in the stadium, and that does reflect onto the players. We get the first goal. I've watched it back. Credit Sean Rowan, who many people had for man of the match. And at the end of the podcast, I'll ask you for man of the match. And we'll ask the 50 people watching for a man of the match as well towards the end of the podcast, see if we can get a little bit of a unanimous choice. So Rowan puts the cross in. Look, Adam Jackson is a decent header, but Christy Pym, what are you doing? What are you doing?
I've been a bit of an advocate. An advocate's not the right word, but a bit of a fan of Christy Pym as a goalkeeper. I know he had a bit of a unceremonious exit at Peterborough. I don't think we still know exactly what happened there, but in terms of on the pitch, I've always kind of thought Christy Pym was a pretty good goalkeeper, and he didn't have a good game today at all, which is obviously good for us. But yeah, he has no right to come for that. Or if he's come for it, he's got to get something on it. The centre half. He's got a 6'6" centre half in front of him in Aidan Flint, who you expect to kind of be mopping those sort of things up all day, and other kind of big players in the team. So yeah, obviously we're delighted by it, because that really settles us down. We weren't bad up until that point. I think that's what's worth it. We were not bad. Mansfield were genuinely good up until that point, but from that moment in time, which was a well taken goal, obviously once Jacko gets his head to it and wins the header, and the keeper's out of position, it's great to see it go. It felt like it took an age to go in, by the way.
It did, yeah.
But it was a real kind of just a nerve settler, I felt, for us. And from that moment until it was 4-0, to be honest, I thought we were utterly superb, both with and without the ball. It was actually without the ball, which I appreciate is going to annoy a lot of people. But it was actually without the ball that just I was so impressed with. From that point, we were maybe not always there up until that point, but from that moment onwards, we were absolutely fantastic, because we didn't seem to go too long too soon. It was interesting when once we went 1-0 up, Mansfield pressed us higher. They even put Keeler what's his name? Keeler something Dunn.
Davis Dunn.
Thank you, Davis Dunn. Is in
David
out
Dunn,
of possession.
sorry.
Thank you. Out of possession, he was like playing as a flat front three when they went like off our goal kicks and things. And I was concerned that we wouldn't be able to play out from there, because I think against actually Barnsley and Harrogate, when they blocked off our playing out, it was almost like it was pointless, because we were knocking the ball to the centre back and then we're knocking it long anyway. But what we found was doing is we was just knocking it over their press. So we was knocking the ball over three players into a Conor McGrandle's feet, into Ben House's feet, into Jovan McCarmer's feet. And that was it was a clever little clip in, and we just played it over the press. but it wasn't an over the press onto a striker's head into a kind of low percentage pass. We were really accurate with it. And I was really impressed from that point. And I felt like everyone just settled from that moment, and we did it more and more and more. The amount of times we won second balls, I thought was absolutely outstanding. And that's not by luck. That is from planning, by setting certain pressing traps. You're forced to play into certain areas of the pitch. You know that when it goes into a certain area, you can win it back, or you're going to intercept a pass, and then you can pounce in areas that were open. And I just thought we were absolutely brilliant from that perspective. And obviously, as a football nerd, I found that as the most pleasing part of today, was how it felt like everyone, for the majority of the game, was on the same page out of possession. And that I don't think I felt that yet this season. So that's why it was most comforting for me.
The most pleasing thing for me was at 4-0 when the away end started emptying. But anyway, we'll come to that in a bit. So we get moving towards half time, and look, games turn on moments. And at 1-0, although we had taken control, you're only one slip, you're only one break, you're only one bad refereeing decision away from 1-1. Now, bad refereeing decisions are something in the past that I have attributed very regularly and very quickly to Mr. Seb Stockbridge. And so I'm going to go on record now, and I'm going to do it in my written thing tomorrow as well. I'm going to give him an apology, because he was, I thought, an outstanding referee today. There was a couple of things he could have got wrong in the first half. There was the hand to the face. I think it was to Jovan. He booked their lad. May have been a little bit harsh, but again, it could have escalated. The foul on Connor, as Conor McGrandles looked like he was going through one-on-one. There's almost a shout there for it to be a red. I know there was a man covering, but he's almost one-on-one through with the goalkeeper. Again, I thought he handled it really well. And you can tell when substitutes were going off, one or two of them shook his hand. And for me, that shows a huge amount of respect from player to referee. And if the players, like Tom Bayliss was the one I noticed when he went off, if the players are respecting the referee, then brilliant. And I've got to respect him because he gave us the free kick that led to the second goal. That was my smooth segue. It was actually really, there was some good play to get us the free kick. And I can't remember exactly now, but there was something when we got there, we'd got a free kick, and it was a quickly taken free kick. If I remember, Tom Bayliss got us further up the field for another free kick. And I kept looking, thinking he's going to blow up for the first one. No, he's going to blow up for the second one. Now, I don't care. I do not care one little bit if Sean Rowan meant it as a cross or meant it as a shot. And if you ask him, he'll probably say a shot. But Christy Pym, what? No, that's deja vu. Do you know what I mean? Christy Pym, what you doing? What are you doing there?
He's fluffed it. I want to add to what you said about Seb Stockbridge, because I 100% agree. I didn't realise he was the referee until we met in the pub after, because I didn't read your referee watch article. But both myself and Joe, and as everyone here watching and listening will know, I'm not the biggest fan of referees generally. I'm pretty critical. And he was absolutely brilliant. I thought he refereed the game fantastically, and it's so rare. Like, you normally say, when you don't notice a referee, you know they've had a good game. But I actually noticed how good decisions he was making. He even gave a foul throw. You never see them. The amount of times I think that was a foul throw, and they never get given in Sunday in professional football, but they get given every weekend in Sunday League football, and they're the same offence. He actually gave a foul throw, which that just made it kind of crossed off the T's and dotted the I's for me in terms of a good performance. Good from Steb.
He was consistent as well.
Yeah, he
was. He booked McGrandles, and people afterwards, as we were saying in the pub, he never even touched the player. No, but he went in quite strong and quite wild. Whereas before that, there'd been a little passage of play where there was 2 or 3 tackles that they were almost off the floor, but they were winning the ball, and it was one from us, one from them, one from us, really quick. Bang, bang, bang. And he let all of it go. He let the play go. He was conducive to the game of football that we saw. So respect him for that. But let's go back, because I know as a goalkeeper, you don't like to criticise goalkeepers. But if you're a Mansfield fan, you're 2-0 down at half-time because of your goalkeeper.
Yes. And as you know, I am very much part of the Goalkeepers Union. And I find it very difficult to criticise a goalkeeper. But Christy Pym has not had a good game today at all. I think he's actually directly or partly responsible for 3 of the 4 goals that we've conceded. That we've scored, that Mansfield have conceded. I'm not complaining, though. Not complaining at all. And by the way, absolutely 100% across from Sean Rowan. XG, by the way, 0.02 from there. Apparently, according to not White Scouts.
That's what you get for a cross.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it makes you get anything for a cross, really, isn't it? But yeah, I think that's what a couple of things you pointed off there. Normally we use Y Scout for our statistics, but that doesn't get they don't get added in until the next morning. So we have to use a different method today. There might be a little bit of discrepancy compared to our regular statistics, but also we normally have the benefit of watching things back, and we haven't watched anything back. Obviously, recording today rather than our normal Sunday. But from what I remember seeing it is that Sean Rowan has knocked a cross in. Christy Pym has effectively palmed it in his own net. He's kind of because he has got a little. I feel like he's got a little touch in it because Mansfield had a defender on the line, and I feel like his touch just knocked it over the head of the defender. Obviously, we all went mental at 2-0, thinking, right, that's not game over at all. But obviously, it's really comfortable at half time. Then when you're going in 2-0 up, with effectively the last kick of the half resulting in a goal. With let's be honest, for the first, as mentioned, first 20-25 minutes, feeling a little bit on edge, thinking we're in a game here, to then have a relatively comfortable 2-0 advantage to take into half time. Just for me, it just felt like the whole ground just calmed at that point, and felt really confident. It was already talking about right when we win, or let's make sure we stay it solid. It was already talking about how we see the win out in terms of the conversation around me, rather than concerning ourselves around how do we get a goal back, how do we stop them playing. It was always around we've probably won now, so let's just make sure we don't do anything silly. And I do think Christy Pym has definitely got a role to play in that. So sorry in terms of goalkeepers union, but thank you from a Lincoln City fan's perspective.
To
Good
be
ball
fair, I'm just watching it back now, and to be fair, yeah, in terms of getting a touch on it, if anything, maybe he did, maybe he didn't. He did get a touch on the one a couple of minutes earlier from Jovan's ball. Paudie O'Connor hit the bar, didn't he? So it could have actually been worse.
Oh yeah, can we talk about that for a second?
Yeah, of course, we can. Yeah, talk about anything we want. It's our podcast.
What an effort! I applaud
Yeah,
it. By the way, left peg. Who knew had a left foot? That was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Hooked volley off the bar.
Oh, you know what it reminded me of when he strode out of defence? Sean Raggett 2016-17 season, or Lewis Monsma 2020-21 season. It was almost like he shocked himself a bit because he came to bring the ball out and their players kind of covered everywhere where they thought he was going to pass. No, this centre half's not going to do anything. And suddenly it was like the Red Sea parted. Was it the Red Sea that parted in front of Moses? Do you know what I mean? It was like it was one of the seas, wasn't it? Moses.
It was a sea.
Yeah, it was
a sea.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not a religious man.
But anyway, no, I'm not. Well, I thanked God today. Don't you worry about that. So anyway, half time comes. It brings an absolute deluge with it. You come out after half time, and around me again, we're a pessimistic bunch. It's like, let's come out quickly. Either keep a clean sheet for the first 15, because if they get 2-1's a dangerous score, 2-0's dangerous, all that sort of rubbish. You come out and you get the third within couple of minutes, 2 minutes of the restart.
Well, we started brilliantly. We won a corner after 15 seconds of the second half, I think.
Yeah.
And that was just such a quick start again. Similar conversation around us in that, okay, we're 2-0 up. Once second half's about to start, you think, okay, excitement's died down from being 2-0. Now you think, well, it's ours to throw away, so let's not do that. But wouldn't it be great if we can get an early goal and that just nips it in the bud? That just kills the game from a Mansfield Town perspective. And you just don't want to see us drop off and sit deep and invite pressure. Even though we know last season, for example, we could, as much as we didn't want to see it, and maybe Screwballer maybe didn't necessarily want us to do it that often until the last few minutes, it's a human nature at times to kind of protect what you've got and sit deeper. So, and I think we know that we had the skills in the squad to be able to see that out. This season, we hadn't seen that yet. We had to have individual errors. So to see us go and win a corner 15 seconds into the second half, press aggressively, win it back and start so quickly was a real pleasure. And then, of course, corner, I seem to think, was cleared, out for throw in, took a quick throw in. By the way, didn't set up for a long throw, took a quick throw in, recycled possession. Sean Rowan strode forward, great deep delivery. Paudie O'Connor. It was like a volleyball setup, wasn't it? You can just little cushioned header, set it up for Jacko, and haven't got that much power on a header with not really a lot of kind of pace on the ball already to make it 3-0. Obviously, we all lose our minds again. And from that point, you do think it's game over, don't you, at 3-0?
The thing is, you've got it at 3-0. You've got a centre-half scored 2 of the goals. A centre-half scored 1 of the others and set 1 up, and then another centre-half. So of the 6 goal involvements, basically, from 3 goals, haven't you? The assist and and actually you've got all of the centre halves involved in 5 of them. And technically, if you took Sean Rowan's cross as the second assist as well, which I know will enrage people who are listening to us, people were telling me on the way to the ground how much we needed a striker. So why do we need a striker? We've now got, we've got 2 defenders on 2 goals apiece. We've got Sean Rowan who's assisting for fun. We've got in fact all of our back 5 have got goals, haven't they? No, we haven't got a left wing back, hasn't got one, has he? Because Dariqua's got one, Rowan's got one, Jacko's got 2. It was the header from O'Connor that I really liked. I thought it was a lovely, like you say, it was like a little volleyball setup. Jacko bang, it's the first time he's got a brace. And for me, that then kills the game. And just for a few minutes, I felt Mansfield's heads drop just for a few minutes. And the stupid thing is, the thing that lifted it back up was the 4th goal. Because that it was almost like once we hit the 4th, it was like they thought, well, we don't want to humble in here. We don't want it to get any worse. And obviously we began to make our changes as well. So let's come on to the 4th goal. I think it would have been from memory an assist for Makama if there hadn't been the initial kind of save or whatever it was from Ben House. So, but again, we need a striker apparently, but Ben House has now got 2 in 3 games.
He has Jovan Makama as, I'm going to count that as an assist for him. He created the chance.
Wyscout won't. So
no, of course not. But
you can do it. Are you keeping a tally? Have you got a little exercise book with Chris's stats in it?
You've met me before, haven't you?
Yeah, I've read your exercise book.
I thought Jovan really grew into the game, by the way. He's obviously had such an impressive start to the season, starting in pre-season, and deservedly has his starting role in the team at the moment. I actually felt in the first 15, 20 minutes where Mansfield were on top, he maybe was one of, not many players, but one of the players that maybe just looked a little bit disjointed and quite off it and not quite on the same wavelength. But honestly, as the game went on, he's such a handful, isn't it? He's just so difficult to play against. And not only is he good with the ball at his feet, not only is he quick at running in behind, his link-up play is pretty good as well. And yeah, really good ball through to Ben House. House running on in behind. I actually thought it was a really good save by Christy Pym after kind of criticising him earlier. First save was really good, made a great save. Similar kind of finish that Jovan tried last week, and another good save by the Barnsley goalkeeper, trying to lift it across the keeper, kind of elevate it, and they got a hand up really well. But of course, Ben went wide on the rebound and tucked it away at the second asking. And good finish. I think he's actually, I'd like to see it again. Obviously, I don't know how wide he was, but from where I was sat, it felt like he'd gone quite wide, and it would have been not an easy finish from that angle. But of course, it was only 4 minutes after we'd made it 3-0. So 51 minutes into the game, we were 4-0 up, and it was 1-0 after 46. So that's obviously we had half time in between, but from the 15 minutes, from 29 through to 51, we only actually had to play really well for 20 minutes to score 4 goals and just kill the game. And that's really impressive. We all want to see a fantastic performance for 90, but that 20 minutes was, obviously the 15 minutes prior to half time and sort of 10 minutes or so after was honestly some of the best football I've seen this Lincoln City side play under Michael Skubala. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Again, both in possession and specifically out of possession. I just felt like we were just superior to them in terms of just nous and understanding of the game. They looked, and they're not, but they looked like a League Two team with a little kind of rabbit in the headlights a little bit for that sort of 10 minutes or so after half time. But you're right. Once we scored 4, we knew we'd won the game at that point. So we started making changes, trying to see the game out. I think they thought, we're going to get a battering here unless we do something. They made a couple of changes as well. And the game kind of petered out a little bit from that point, but it was kind of game set and match by that point for us, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was indeed. I mean, there's not a lot of point in dissecting their goal. They scored and it was a weak goal. I have watched it back and I'm not going to apportion blame because I always think it's important to look for the light in the dark and the dark in the light. But I think that when you've played as well as we have, and we've credited Mansfield for their role in that, and how well we felt they played, and what a half decent side we think they are. So for us to now start sitting down to go, this was why we conceded the goal. It will be disappointing we've conceded the goal, but it's not a major issue. And the one thing I will say, and this is goalkeepers union as well, but George Wickham's doing that little dummy and turn. He wouldn't have done that at 1-0. No chance whatsoever.
Oh, I liked
Does that
it.
or was it?
That's a little bit of me. That's a little bit of me. I liked it. Joe next to me had nearly had kittens.
I did, yeah.
I was calm as you like. I knew exactly what he was doing. It was obvious what he was doing, but maybe he wouldn't do it at 1-0. But it's just knowing, it's obvious the angle that the striker was running in at. He was already started to close him down. Little dummy, off you go. Thank you very much. I like it. I know. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't want to do it all the time, but in that exact situation, it was the right thing because he has actually got a left foot as well as George. So it's not like he didn't. It's like, oh my God, I can't kick it with this side. I've got to cut inside. It was just to open up a passing lane. Don't get me wrong. If that goes wrong, you look very silly. So you have to be very, very confident to do it. Being 4-1 up or 3-0 up, whatever it was at the time, to have the confidence to do it, I think has a role to play. But no, I'm all for that.
But then I want to see confidence. I want to think that our players are confident because a confident team is a good team and winning breeds winning and all that sort of stuff, as long as it's not a confidence bordering on arrogance. And bear in mind, the league table doesn't matter now, but we are 6th, just in case anyone wonders. But 8 goals scored, which is more than anybody in the division. Stockport have scored 7, we've scored 8. Okay, the 5 is worrying because there's only 2 teams in the relegation zone who've conceded fewer than 5. But it's kind of an entertaining start. And, I always used to say under Mark Kennedy, I'd rather draw 0-0 every week than lose 4-3 and win 6-4 or whatever. But it's nice to be off the seat and it's nice to kind of feel that atmosphere. And I said it on the podcast with Charlie and I'll say it again. I think today's atmosphere is better than when Birmingham come or when, I don't know, Charlton come and they bring big numbers because they take big numbers everywhere. And no disrespect, like I said at the top of the show, to Mansfield, but they won't take big numbers to Bristol Rovers as we won't. They won't to Exeter. They'll take relatively decent numbers. But it's an atmosphere that's based not just in the fact that they're a big club like Birmingham are. It's an atmosphere based in locality. It's an atmosphere based in, I'm not going to say a genuine dislike, but that kind of, they're just up the road. We've got the history. Bear in mind, that was our first win against them in 17 years. Since the day after, honestly, 2000 first league win, not in the cup, first league win since 2007.
Is that the season that we won 4-0 at their place?
No, 4-2. That was the season before. It was actually before John Schofield got sacked. Louis Dodd scored, and we won 3-1. And that at their place. So heaven knows how long it's been since we've beaten them at home. Probably the last time we beat them at home was when we beat them 4-1. Before with Peter Gain, I think. Richard Butcher from Gain and that sort of thing.
Jamie Lawrence scored a penalty for them, then we scored 4 goals after that. Liam Lawrence. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's a long time ago.
He was a footballer as well. So anyway. Look, we could wax lyrical about Lincoln players all day long, but I don't want to. What I want to do, I think if we just pick out, what do you think, 2 each?
May I suggest a small discussion before we do this?
Just as an aside, we actually beat them 2-0 in January 2005. Kieran Toner and Simon Yeo, and they had Luke Demesh sent off, who was actually a trainee here. Sorry, go on. What do you want to...
played football for Malta, I seem to think.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Anyway, which is a red and white flag, by the way, in case anyone's wondering.
No, they're not.
Okay. Can we discuss George Wickens? I know we didn't have a huge amount to do today, but this is a discussion. I know, just generally. Because I think this is
Jesus.
I know, but it's going to do the world a good for him because we all know what Lucas Jensen turned into. It went from, we all knew that when the ball went in the box, I don't think in the whole of the stadium, no one worried. We were all quite calm because we knew he had it under control. And whenever you get a new goalkeeper coming in, there's always that concern. I think whenever you sign a new footballer, outfield player, you're always looking for what can they do on the ball, what can they add to the team. For a goalkeeper, you're kind of looking for mistakes, aren't you? That's kind of just the nature of the position. And I'm just wondering, what was all of our collective kind of perspectives of Lucas Jensen 3 games into last season? We all know what it turned into, so we're comparing George to what Lucas became and how we trusted him. And I'm just wondering, because I can't remember, I'm asking you just an honest question. I cannot remember how I felt about Lucas Jensen 3 games in, because you're always looking for mistakes. I imagine there was comments about he kicked 1 or 2 goal kicks out for a throw in now and then. But we know as the season progressed, he made big saves. He was really dominant in his box. I was really impressed with George today. I think it'd be a real confidence booster for him. But I'm just wondering how that compares to Lucas's, or our perception of George compares to Lucas this time last season.
I like being asked questions on the podcast. It gets boring asking them all the time. I think last season, Lucas Jensen, there was a degree of uncertainty around him as there is whenever a new keeper comes in. And the way that they play can then dictate how they are viewed throughout the rest of the season. Alex Palmer's opening day was against Oxford United, and he pulled off 2 brilliant saves. We won 2-0 on a day that it should probably have been 2-2. And ever from that point on, everybody had confidence in him. And he actually made a couple of howlers, by the way, around February. But there was already the perception that he's a great goalkeeper, and keepers have all got mistakes in them. Whereas Josh Griffiths made errors on the first couple of days. It was Gillingham, we drew 1-1, and Griffiths committed he should have done better. And then I think we lost at Wickham. Max Melbourne and Josh Griffiths got themselves mixed up. Constantly a perception that he wasn't a good goalkeeper after that, and he's now generally regarded as the weakest of the 5 goalkeepers that we've had. So I think it's a great question. I don't think Wickens has done anything bad in league action. He messed up against Arsenal under 21s, but nobody cares because it's a friendly. Friendlies don't matter. He hasn't had an awful lot to do as yet. He made a couple of basic saves today, a parry that maybe he could have caught it, I don't know, but his first save was good. He scared me with the twist, but he feels more confident than Jensen. And dare I say, I'm not, because Lucas Jensen was a great goalkeeper, but Wicken's distribution, by the look of the way he's pinging passes around, he could almost have been an outfield player because he's really confident with the ball at his feet. And whenever he went to play the ball forward, he left it quite late and he was getting closed down quite quickly. But I never actually felt that he was going to get caught out. I'm not saying I did with Jensen, but I never felt that was going to be the case with Wickens. So that's where I think I am on that. And that's not the official pod line. That's just...
No, it's a good point. And I agree with his distribution. I obviously massively defended Lucas's distribution because it wasn't as bad as people suggested. It was fine, but he did miscue probably one every game that went out for a goal kick and everyone a throw-in, and everyone notices that. We know that his value was very much in terms of traditional goalkeeping attributes, in terms of shot stopping, catching crosses, etc. I agree. Wickens with the ball at his feet, his long pass accuracy and like the flight of the ball, the trajectory sends it off on it is definitely better than Jensen, isn't it? That's not I don't think that's a controversial statement. I think that's just fact. That's just your eyes telling you the truth. It's just the other stuff.
Test.
But yeah, the eye test indeed.
The eye test.
It's very difficult. It's very difficult to find goalkeeping statistics, though. That is one thing that's difficult to judge goalkeepers on, other than goals prevented. But
they're not really footballers, are they?
Yeah, you're right. I'm absolutely right. You know, speaking as a goalkeeper and every goalkeeper thinks I could play outfield, and then I tried it. I couldn't play outfield very well at all. Stick me in goal, I'm all right. Right. Yes, we all think we can play outfield, but we can't. But enough about goalkeepers, I imagine.
I can't believe we're 43 minutes in, and we do have one other thing to talk about. So we are both going to pick 2 players each that we want to draw attention to. We haven't planned this. There's no notes. So I'm going to go first in order to take one of the picks, because I definitely want to talk about them. And we will. I can't believe I'm having to say we will have to keep this brief because we don't want to do any more than 17 minutes. So it's a couple of minutes on each one. I've got to pick out Tendai Darikwa because I honestly, when last went, I genuinely didn't think that we would get a player as attackingly mobile as last. Last was good. He got forward. He bombed up the line. Defensively, I'm not going to say he was suspect, but it wasn't the strongest element of his game. Darikwa, he's got both. He was getting up and down that line, absolutely superb in my opinion. And bear in mind, he was playing Premier League football in 2016-17 for Burnley, wasn't he? So we're talking about a high quality defender. But there was the moment where he's got into the area in the first half. He's actually squared it. Whereas you think if he rattles a shot at the goalkeeper, the keeper's got to parry it. It drops into the 6-yard box. But for me, it's actually the right choice. It's just that there wasn't the striker on the end of it. It should have been a goal. But I just thought he was brilliant. And there was once or twice where it's how he controls the ball, how he caresses the ball, how he's got a moment just to step away, or he reads the game superbly. He's a little thought ahead, even in terms of his defensive actions. So, like if a forward's closing him down, or if their left full back Barry was on him, it just so with a certain amount of ease that he does things. He was making the job look easy, and he's quick. When we first signed a 32-year-old who had been off playing in Cyprus, I kind of thought, well, what's the attraction here? It's so far outside of our usual remit in terms of what we bring in. And I just, for me, and I agree with Harry Jackson, wherever that comment has gone. For me, he was up there as man of the match. I thought he was absolutely superb today.
Yeah, well, this will save a bit of time because I 100% agree with you. He was going to be one of my 2 picks as well. I think it's impossible not to pick him as one of the top 2 performers of the team. I agree as well. Really was concerned about the right wing back role because when you play in the system that we play, we know we've got an abundance of centre midfielders. We've actually, for once, got good options going forward in terms of the front 2. We've got a solid back 3. Wing backs are what make or break your team when you play a back 3 system. And replacing someone as effective as Lasse Sorensen and also as well liked as Lasse Sorensen one as well was going to be such a huge task. And Tendai, dare I say, in what we've seen so far, is a more rounded player than even Lasse Sorensen was. And I don't think Lasse was massively suspect defensively. I agree he wasn't the strongest part of his game because he was so effective going forward. But I just think Tendai he oozes experience and know-how. He's got but often when you find you sign a player, particularly in League One, you sign a player that has that as one of their kind of key attributes. They kind of play in the game with your head, had that experience, you know what position to be in because you've been there a million times before. Normally that comes with the absence of the physical side of the game. But he's absolutely got the physical side of the game as well. He was, as you say, up and down the pitch, quick, agile, strong, but also made good decisions, swept up really well, took up good covering positions as well to allow us to keep attacking. And I just think it's absolutely superb. I think whenever a centre-back scores 2 goals, you probably have to give them man of the match, regardless of what happens to the rest of the game. But Derikwa would have been man of the match in terms of in terms of general public.
I'm not buying
in terms of the overall performance, yeah, Derikwa was my man of the match as well for that reason. Absolutely, unbelievable.
It's like the sponsors, isn't it? When whoever scores, they normally get man of the match. And that, you know what? And it's not about that. Jacko had a great game, and I'm not taking that away from him. Adam Jackson's a great guy. He's a leader. He's calm. He's a great guy. He's an asset to this football club. But I don't give him man of the match just for that. For me, it's Derikwa. So go on then. We've got that's 1 pick. We'll still let you pick 2 unless you don't want to.
No, I think I'll choose Derikwa as one of mine because I can't not. I think McGrandles, I know we discussed it earlier, but I just think the difference it made having Connor in there alongside Tom Bayliss and Ethan Rahan, not only into the Connor himself, the attributes he brings to the team, but just the balance that gave us in the midfield. I just thought they were so complementary of each other in terms of what they all bring to the team in and out of possession. And again, once he came off, I think you noticed he wasn't on the pitch, despite Jack Mullen having some really good flashes on the ball. And had a shot, I think, and got us up the pitch a couple of times. I think just Conor McGrandles just gives us that solidity and calmness, yet also offers that threat going forward as well. And I just think him back in midfield is absolutely massive for us, despite the depth we have there. I think it was one of the deciding factors today. I think if we didn't have him starting the game, I think we might have gone a goal down in that first 20, 25 minutes. And then it's a very, very different game then, isn't it, as we know from last week. So, yeah, Conor McGrandles for me deserves a huge mention.
No, there are so many other players that genuinely do. Dom Jeffries slotted in nicely at left back. I thought he did really well. I thought Sean Rowan was utterly outstanding. We've already mentioned the 2 centre halves. The best player on the park was probably Ethan Arahan, which goes without saying. You've got the centre forwards putting the work in. You know, we're not talking about Jovan Makama, and that's actually to his credit, not to his detriment, because it's just assumed that he's a first 11 striker who put a good shift in and a really good shift. There's so much to say, but the other player I've got to pick out is Tom Bayliss, because he got the sponsors man of the match, which was a decent pick. He is all of the best things about, or today, it's wrong to assume it's always going to be the same. He was all of the best things about Danny Mandroyu and Ted Bishop rolled into one. I thought he was mobile. He got on the ball. He carried up the field. He was one step ahead at times when it came to positioning. He's absolutely not afraid to get stuck in either. Normally with an attacking midfielder, you think, oh, he might shirk a tackle. He never shirked a tackle. I just, you know what? It was just that little bit of class shaking the referee's hand that genuinely put the seal on it to me. I mean, we were lucky enough to meet Tom.
And he was a genuinely nice chap, wasn't he, when we spoke to him?
Such a lovely lad. And I remember talking to him thinking, I just hope that you're not going to be shit. And that sounds awful. But you know what I mean? I hope that you haven't come here, and because we know his quality. Preston paid £2 million for him. This is a footballer. Do you know what I mean? And how am I going to put this? I always remember my dad, and it's the way he talks about players. He will call players footballers. Gary Taylor-Fletcher was one of the first I remember him saying, he's a footballer. It's not a defender who works hard, who scraps, who puts a foot in. He's not a centre forward who pops up and knocks one in with his tab end. He's a footballer. He gets on the ball and he makes things happen. He's like the puppet. And for me, they're the type of players that whether it's because my dad used to tell me the proper footballers, but it's the Peter Gaines and it's the George Grants, the players that it just happens. And to a degree, it's the Ted Bishops. I prefer them not to be made of glass. I like them to be made of flesh and bone. So, and I just thought, to me today, Bayliss just had that. It's just, there's an effortlessness about the way that he can glide when he's on the ball. And it's easy when you're 3-0 up, or do you know what I mean? It's easy when you've got that upper hand, and it's not going to be the same when you go away to Stevenage. I get it, but that's why we're getting excited right now, because we've done it today. We've beaten Mansfield, so we're able to get excited about these players. And I don't care if anybody says you're getting too excited about them. I just think Tom Bayliss could well be the marquee signing of the summer in terms of impact this season.
Yeah, I think so, and it's right to praise him today. But I actually think he's shown that all season. I think he's been really consistent. Some players haven't been consistent. They've shown elements of their skill set in flashes. I think Tom's shown exactly what he's all about ever since he's joined the club, and there's so many similarities in terms of style between him and. I think he's more similar to Ted than Danny.
Ted, yeah.
In terms of good ball carrying, particularly, sorry, but. It was really good today. I'll be honest, I was surprised he got man of the match, not because it was a poor performance, just because of the other elements of the game. But I'm pleased he got it, and I agree. Just classy guy in terms of shaking the referee's hand. Obviously, I don't think when we spoke to him, it kind of created a soft spot or so. But like you say, you hope he does well because he's a nice guy, and now he's a nice guy. You wish him well, and when he shows his quality, it's just a bit of a feel good factor. But he's a real asset, and he is one of the senior players in the squad, even though he's only 25, 26. In our midfield three, we had Ethan Arahan, and we all know his quality despite his tender years. Conor McGrandles, of course, is a senior figure, and Tom Bayliss is the most senior midfielder other than those two. And we've experimented with other players in that role throughout the season so far, because the two that play ahead of Ethan Arahan are basically the same either side. They might have different dynamics in terms of different balance and different attributes, but in terms of their role on the pitch positionally, they're two advanced eights. And of all the players that play ahead of Ethan Arahan, I think that's a creative. And I think you say maybe Moylan, maybe McKinnon will go into that role. Jeffries potentially. He's head and shoulders above them for me in terms of who starts. And I think they're all new players. They're all new signings. You kind of think they all start on 11, kind of an even keel. But he's head and shoulders above them in terms of just the pecking order at the moment. And to do that 3 or 4 games into the season, to be that confident that he's a guaranteed starter, in my mind, I think is real kind of good praise required for him.
I think it was probably expected. I think Jeffries and McKinnon are slow burners who will be excellent for us. I disagree slightly in that I don't think Jeffries is in that. I think Bayliss, Moylan and McKinnon, yes. I actually think Jeffries is more McGrandles, Hamilton. And I know it's 2 advanced eights, but you've got 2 advanced eights, one that is an advanced, will push forward, and one that can almost slide. So they've got to be 2 different types. It's like you wouldn't play 2 big lumps up top, or you wouldn't play 2 speedy little 9s up top. You look for that kind of 2 that complement each other. I really want to pick this up from Sue. Actually, she just put a comment on, and I really like this comment. I think it's well worth picking up. Tom Bayliss has fitted into the team like he's already played a season with them. That's the key, because actually that was one of the comments from last week. And when I was chatting to somebody at the club yesterday, the comment was kind of made that we can see what we want to do, but the reason it looks like we've gone long a little bit too much is because 1 or 2 of the players are not quite up to scratch yet. They're not quite up to, and I wonder if that might be one or two of the younger players, because actually today Tom Bayliss looked like he had played with Conor McGrandles, Ethan Arahan, Ben House, and Deriqua as well in that. It was almost like the older heads, the more experienced heads, the ones that have been around a while, they got it today. And I think Tom was a key part of that.
Yeah, not a lot to add other than just, yes, I agree, because I appreciate I've spoken a lot, so I'll be quiet.
Right. 55 minutes in. So 5 is what you get if you add our goals to their goal today. 55 minutes, 4-1-5. Lincoln City win 4-1, Mansfield Town. We've got to wrap that bit up there because we did just, don't look confused, it's maths.
No, which isn't normally your strong point.
Oh, all right. Along with fantasy football, the only thing I know is Lincoln. If we ever folded, I'd just go and get a job somewhere else, do something else. So there isn't really any other news because we did do the podcast with Charlie on Thursday. Apart from the fact that obviously we do a podcast the day after Lincoln City announced the signing, we have spoken quite extensively about Eric Ring, but it's a Home Office approval. He should be in the squad or in and around the squad next Saturday. We're still looking for one more, Michael Scabala said, at least. You would imagine a striker, and if they can get one, I would imagine a young left-sided centre-back for cover would be the two things that we'd be looking for. But that's what might happen. What has happened is Eric Ring. We've already spoke about it extensively, but because we've signed him, I will throw it over to you for comment.
Exciting signing. Also, side note, your video was superb, by the way.
Thank you.
You put together really good, showing his highlights. I think
infringed on all sorts of copyrights according to YouTube.
But just put that out publicly now. Why not? But no, in all seriousness, I think it's a really exciting signing. I think we can back the club's recruitment policy. I think they've earned that over the last few years. I can see a few comments mentioning that in terms of Tendai. Absolutely right. Deserves the credit that's deserved. But in terms of Eric Ring, he's going to be coming in to play football, in my opinion. AIK are a big club. The Swedish league is no joke. They average 25,000 attendance in their league, in a 50,000 seat stadium. There's a lot of big clubs in that division. League One, from a Swedish Premier League supporter's opinion, is probably going to be viewed as a step down. We see it as a step up because it's you're biased of your own area. Yeah, of course. But the reason Eric Ring has chosen not to be a squad player with potential at AIK to come over to England, as much as probably the ceiling of his career is higher over here than it is in Sweden. In terms of right here, right now, he wants to play football so he can achieve that ceiling. So my opinion is he's coming in. Once he gets up to speed and gets settled, obviously, come to a new country for the first time, that'll take a little while. But once he's settled, I can absolutely see him being our starting left wing back. I think Dom Jeffries was good today. I was surprised to see him start. I thought he was good and he probably deserves to keep his shirt for Saturday. But I can see Eric Ring playing in that left wing back role and being our starting player in that position for the majority of the season. Side note, I might be barking up the wrong tree here, but what I really like is Sean Rowan's hybrid position in that he is a left centre back, but when the moment is right, you can overlap. When we're playing a left-footed left winger, Sean Rowan is very much a centre back. So we have a back three. That's that. When our left wing back has the potential to go both sides and can invert inside, it allows Sean Rowan, as he did today from time to time, to overlap and get crosses in. When the time is right, it gives us an extra player forward. I'm wondering whether we partly went for Jeffries today to allow that to happen. And obviously Eric Ring, as much as he's most comfortable on the left-hand side, is right-footed predominantly. Potentially that's part of our system. So that's really exciting for me.
I also think it's a cover thing. It's the Jack Borras situation, but better.
Yeah, you can play both sides.
Play right wing back if we want. And I think with Jeffries today, actually, if we'd sat down and spoken about it, and usually you and I do, he was a natural pick at left wing back today over Dylan Duffy because he was a little bit more defensive, and Akins on the right hand side there is a real attack minded. We needed somebody that was going to keep track with him. That's no disrespect to Dylan Duffy, but Dylan Duffy's a left winger. Dara has asked where will Hackett fit into our 11, or would he not start? Well, there you go. That leads me to the next point. Eric Ring, Rico Hackett, Ethan Hamilton, Tyler Walker, all still to come into this side. a potentially new signing. Everyone was telling me we need to sign a striker. I said to my dad on the way home in the car, who would you drop them? Because Dad loves Jovan McCarmer, which surprises me because he's exactly the sort of player I didn't think Dad would like. A youngster, hasn't scored an awful lot of goals. Dad thinks he's great. You're not going to drop Ben House, are you? So if we do sign this striker, and obviously Bailey Kadamata has been mentioned, or well, obviously we're not going to get Joe Taylor anymore. But do you know what I mean? Where do they fit in? I mean, it's the thing is, this could be just the beginning. We were talking like this in March last year, after we'd been through a pretty torrid time up until, let's say, December. Even Marcus Kowala's first month was tough away at Stevenage, and it was hard going at times. With 3 games in, 6th, whatever, scored more goals than everybody else in the division. We've still got Ethan Hamilton, who you would consider a first-team player, over probably McGrandles. I mean, they're going to have a titanic battle to come into the side. Rico Hackett, you would consider a first-team player, but now we've just signed Eric Ring. So where Hackett could play through the centre, you've got Tyler Walker, who actually last season was our marquee signing to come into this side. Am I forgetting anyone? You've got Lewis Monsma knocking on the door, waiting to come in. This is the deepest Lincoln City squad I have ever known. We are at 1 hour and 1 minute. May I just promote Just Giving / I don't know, Gary Hutchinson, maybe, which is the walk my dad and I are doing for cancer research. That's happening next Sunday. We are walking from Bardney to Rugby. So it used to be a walk many years ago. Rugby Walking Club did it. So my dad's dad, my granddad, who's a Lincoln City fan, who's the reason that Dad got into sport in Lincoln City, therefore the reason I got into sport in Lincoln City, used to do it. There's a great picture on one of the old Facebook sites of my granddad there getting an award for walking from Rugby to Bardney or whatever. So we're doing that. We're doing it with a lot of Lincoln fans. So Mike Downs is doing it. Steve Barton's doing it. Claire Hunsley's doing it. I think Adam Ball might be doing it. I think he was watching earlier. So I think that he's doing it. Chris Lamming is doing it, I'm told, next week. So there's a lot of us doing it. We're still available to sponsor. There is still a TJ Omer shirt on eBay at the moment. Signed TJ Omer shirt. Search for that, or look at stacywest.net. All the details are on there. I think it's the pinned post on my own website, because I'm so egotistical. I own garyhutchinson.co.uk, so you can go on there and have a look as well. So yeah, please do give generously. Unfortunately, one of the guys that sits around us at the football, I won't name him because out of just respect to his family, etc., but he has recently found out that he has cancer and unfortunately will not see the end of the season. So I think that's anyway, upsetting for everybody. But we sent him some pictures today. He's hoping to get to one more game, but cancer devastates lives, and the more money that goes into researching and being able to help people, the better. 20 years ago, my dad probably wouldn't still be here now, but thanks to the cancer research and the kind of the progression of science, he was able to have it whipped out, probably with less pain than me when I get my wisdom tooth out, which is inevitably going to happen. So that happens through people being very kind through charity. Thank you to everybody who's already given money. We're already up to 1,500 quid. Wouldn't it be brilliant to get to 1,750 just to help maybe save a life in the future? Ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, this was episode 313 of the Stacey West podcast, and we have spoken about big wins in the past. We've spoken about beating local rivals in the past. I'm not sure on the Stacey West podcast if we've ever talked about putting 4 goals past an actual local derby, not just a team that's you can get to drive in within a couple of hours, a team that you could probably realistically run to inside a couple of hours if you were that way inclined. We've beaten Mansfield Town 4-1. It's the first time in 17 years. And all of a sudden, the future does look much brighter, even to those who live on the dark side of town. We have been the Stacey West podcast. Thank you for sharing your Saturday evening with us. We are delighted to have shared ours with you, and we will be back later on in the week. Up the Imps.
Up the Imps.
This is the